I'll call the meeting to order. Begin with the roll.
Mr. Vanyo.
Here.
Mrs. Sherling. Here. Mr. Thorsted.
Here.
Mr. Olson.
Here.
Dr. Mahoney.
Aye.
Ms. Sobolik. Here. Mr. Williams.
Here.
Mr. Campbell.
Here.
Ms. Otto. Here.
You have before you the minutes from the last meeting.
Move approval. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Order of agenda, like to do is move number 8 up right following 4, which basically is administrative legal. Availability of some attorneys who will be in that executive session basically is the reason why I'm doing that. So if that is okay, I would ask for a motion to approve the order of agenda.
I'd move to approve the agenda, moving item 8 after number 4.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and John, bring us through the process here.
Good afternoon, or good morning, actually. I'm used to meeting in the afternoon. So, I have a couple of updates for the committee first, and then Eric is going to take over when we go into the motions for the executive session. Just kind of an update, the negotiation team has been working on the PPA with the United States Army Corps of Engineers. That should be, we should be able to provide a briefing relatively soon regarding the status of the PPA. There will also be a MOU attached to that PPA, which will cover the P3 elements of the project. So there'll be more information to come on that. I just wanted to give you a brief update that we're working on that. Last week, the finance team met briefly and discussed working on the structuring of the finance plan that we hope to have out sometime in late May. And also last week, we had a meeting for some informal rollout of the project to some of the industry leaders in New York. That meeting went very well. It was very well attended and very well received. And then on another issue, I handed out in front of you is the Joint Powers Agreement that I'm referring to as version 3.5. We had started about 5 versions ago, and through several changes and additions, we're pretty close to a near final version. You'll note I'm referring to this as a 98% version with the idea that you would have an opportunity to review it. If there's our additional comments or changes, we have some time to make it with the intent that there would be formal approval by the Diversion Authority of the amendment at the May 12th meeting. I'd just briefly like to also note that if there are typos or things like that, we would cover that before the near final also. Some of the substantive changes that you'll note that have occurred within the most recent drafts are related to the governance. Discussion had been occurring regarding adding a specific board member position for the city of West Fargo. West Fargo would not be a member entity, but would have the ability to appoint a board member. The city commission would appoint a board member, and that would be outside of the 3 members that would be appointed by Cass County. So you'd be adding another member to the governing board. And in response to that, to maintain that split between the 2 states, Clay County would receive the ability to appoint 1 additional board member. Clay County had indicated they would like the discretion to be able to appoint a member of a governing body of a city within Clay County. They don't have to, but they have that ability as some flexibility. That's one major substantive change. You'll also note in the agreement there is a section just going through the split delivery of the project. While that section was not originally in the first draft, I felt that was important after some discussions with different member entities to identify the overall delivery of the project, because there seemed to be a little bit of misunderstanding that the Corps is responsible for delivering the inlet to the diversion channel, the southern embankment, the Wildwise control structure, and the Red River control structure, and that is not, the member entities aren't delivering those pieces of infrastructure, the Corps is. To that end, the Corps has reviewed the agreement in its entirety. Their comments are also incorporated within the agreement. I've also had the 2 insurance companies for each of the state political subdivisions review the agreement. NDRF has reviewed the agreement, as has the League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust. Their comments are incorporated. They had very few comments. They were both very positive comments in that they didn't see anything negative about the agreement and thought it was a well-drafted agreement, and it clearly set forth the rights and responsibilities of the parties. Also, there's been a little bit of cleanup in some of the language regarding the financing and the fund accountings. I would refer to that as more technical cleanups. We had our financial consultants, Ernst & Young, have reviewed the agreement several times, and so I made a few cleanups based upon their guidance. And then I added in a couple sections that were technical in nature, but more clarifications of everybody's mutual understanding of what the agreement should reflect, recognizing that this agreement and this project will go on for generations, and the people that will be reviewing it in the future may not remember all the agreements among the parties. So I tried to be very clear on those understandings. I also added in one very specific provision, which while I don't think was necessary originally in the agreement, just to add some clarity, this agreement does not supersede the authority of a local entity to require a permit. So if you're a member entity like Fargo and you require a zoning permit or a building permit for a lift station or a dike or some other facility, this agreement isn't intended to supersede that authority. And I frankly had thought that was very clear in the agreement before, but I wanted to add that additional level of clarity. So I can certainly answer any questions about the agreement, kind of give a brief overview of it. I'm able to answer any questions that you might have regarding the agreement. We are waiting on our P3 council. They had reviewed version 3.4 and just seeing if they had any additional comments before I provide a near final version to the Diversion Authority. And I forgot, there's one other substantive issue. To provide maximum flexibility, it gave the ability to one of the Minnesota member entities that they could, if they so desired, transfer ownership of their portion of the project either to Clay County or to the City of Moorhead or to the Diversion Authority. They're not required to, but there was, I didn't really have a good sense of if there was a concern or not. It's not mandated, but it just gave them the authority to do that. And keep in mind, under the project participation agreement, the project the ownership of the project property has to be maintained with non-federal sponsors. So it's either going to have to be with the project property will either have to be owned by the Diversion Authority or the member entities of the Diversion Authority or the City of Fargo or the City of Moorhead.
Mayor?
John, I want to congratulate you for working real hard on this. This is a really insightful agreement. I think you've tried to address many of the issues that the Diversion Authority has seen. It's inclusive. You're trying to get as many people to the table as possible. I think Minnesota, North Dakota, it really brings us all, in a sense, to the table to discuss this issue. The diversion going forward is going to have input and buy-in and working forward. But of how this could be drafted, I think you've gone to all our members and talked to them and allowed them input. And I just want to thank you so much for all the hard work you've done on this. And I find this an excellent piece of work.
Thank you.
John, is it the intent that this would be approved at the next meeting by this board?
That is the intent, and then it would go out to the member entities for formal approval. If the member entities wanted to have a sort of an informal review at some of their upcoming meetings, I would try to make myself available to answer any questions regarding it. Obviously, they'll have their own attorneys that may have comments to the document, but that's the intent, to get a near final version within the next 2 weeks, and then that near final version would be approved by this board. And tentatively, I think it would be good to have another six-member informational meeting prior to the next Diversion Authority Board meeting, just to go over the near final. And perhaps we can talk about any other issues. If maybe if we're ready to have kind of some information regarding the PPA, we could also discuss that at the informational meeting.
Okay. Any other comments, questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if they're looking at another six-entity informational meeting, I noticed that a lot of those, we haven't had a real good attendance turnout for those. And I know that John just has all sorts of free time, so I was just wondering if it would make sense for us to have one of those like we have been doing during the day, but then maybe have another time period for early evening for those who may have other commitments during the day that wouldn't be able to get the briefing. I think it would be a good thing for us to do that. We have some people, for example, who are school teachers, and it's difficult for them to get out of class to make the afternoon or morning updates. So I'm throwing that out there as a
One thought
suggestion.
along those lines, Kevin, might be to, if this is something we're going to do before the next board meeting, maybe that particular week of the next board meeting, maybe we could just simply schedule it in the evening. I don't know if that alone would take care of it, but maybe that would be
I know that the daytime does
Yeah.
create some issues for some.
maybe.
You know, I think it's a great idea to have informational meeting in the evening for people that can't catch up with it. We certainly can work on scheduling something like that. I think it's important that everybody feel that they have their questions answered from the member entities, and we have all the input, because we've been spending a lot of time on the agreement and trying to capture all those mutual understandings and get them clarified and put them into the agreement.
Thank you.
Anything else, John?
No, not for me, but Eric Johnson will have.
Thank you so much, John. Good work.
Good morning. As you know, you received I think, an amended agenda a day or two ago from Heather, talking about the need for an executive session to talk about an item that we reasonably anticipate it will result in civil litigation, and that warrants confidential executive session. That's the project WP 42A1A3. But then earlier this morning, we made the determination we might as well take advantage of the executive session to bring you up to speed and to talk about the lawsuit with the original Wilkin JPA, and so we add that to the item. And so the suggested motion would be that the Diversion Authority meet in executive session as authorized by North Dakota Century Code 4404-19.1 to consult with its attorneys to discuss a matter which may reasonably anticipated result in civil litigation, namely Project WP 42A1A3, and also to discuss the existing and pending federal lawsuit that was brought by the Richland Wilkin JPA. I just recite all that so you can say so moved if you're so inclined and take care of it that way.
Mary?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I guess everyone at this table is certainly welcome. Reconvening here, item number 5. I don't know who's going to be handling that.
I could just handle it from here if you like.
Okay, sure.
If, the only action items we've got for you today there are 2 contracting actions, and they were passed out. The summary sheet is there's a $79,000 request to increase the budget for the Houston Moore Group, but for $79,000 to do additional work with the Corps of Engineers on a draft water control plan. It's the first one. And then there's a change order on one of the work packages with regard to additional time and cost related to some additional asbestos that was found in a number of the houses in the El Zago area.
Move to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments, questions?
I just have one quick question.
Sure.
The utility disconnects, apparently there was a miscommunication. Is that costing us money? Or is that just changing the milestone?
I think that part of it was just adding time to the project.
Okay.
They added some time, but not money.
All right, thank you.
Take the roll, please.
Mr. Vania?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherling?
Yes.
Mr. Thorsted?
Yes.
Mr. Olson?
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney?
Aye.
Ms. Soblick? Aye. Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Ms. Otto?
Yes.
Any other business to come before us? If, next meeting, May 12th, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move. Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We do have a Metro Flood Board, which will just take a quick minute.
Excuse me, Richard.
Here.
Call that meeting to order.
No, wait a minute here.
Roll on.
First item is minutes from the last meeting,
Move
which
to approve.
are attached. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. The recommended motions on the second page, basically the same one, appropriation of funds for the two contract actions.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Anything further? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next meeting, May 12th.
Motion to adjourn? Second.
Second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Perfect.